Dear friends, good evening and namaskar. Uh, Welcome to all those who have joined us virtually. As you are aware, we are observing the week from 11 December to 19 December as the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav week. As part of this week, we had earlier Janjatiya Gaurav Divas celebration and a program on heart health awareness at the consulate premises. And yesterday we had a webinar on Ayurveda. Uh, Today we are fortunate, we are blessed to have a lecture on Hindustani music by Mr. Lyon Liefer. Uh, Before he begins his lecture, I would like to mention that Consul General was to be here to give his opening remarks, but he's held up in the traffic and he will join us at the end of this program. And in the meantime, I'll be doing the honor to introduce Lyon. Mr. Lion Leafer is recognized in Europe, the America, China, and India as a master flutist who performs both on Western flutes and on Bansuri, North Indian keyless bamboo flute. Uh, After early studies in Chicago with Emil Eck and Walfrid Kojula, Mr. Liefer attended the Juilliard School of Music, where he studied with Julius Baker. After graduating, he became a member of the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, pursuing an interest in improvised raga music and flute playing in India. He then accepted a Fulbright grant to study there with uh, Guru Devendra Murdeshwar, the inheritor of the legacy of great Pannalal Ghosh. Remaining in India for 5 years, Mr. Liefer won the praise of audiences and critics for his authentic renditions of raga melodies. Returning to Chicago, Mr. Liefer became one of the city's leading flutists and flute teachers. He gives recitals on Western flutes, both period and modern, and performed as principal flutist for the 20-year run of the Ars Viva Orchestra and for 27 years in the group. Uh, he also held first flute chair in the Lake Forest Symphony for several years until its demise at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2019, he won another Fulbright grant to study the current state of Bansuri playing and making in India, spending 2 months in country and taking part in a number of seminars organized in different parts of the country. Uh, he is also the founding member of the Chicago South Asian Classical Music Society. Now, I invite Lion to share his interesting experiences in India as well as in other countries. Hi, Lion.
Hi, Ranjit. Thank you very much for the very kind introduction. So I want to thank you and Consul General Amit Kumar for this opportunity to speak to the community about my experiences and about our approach to Bansuri playing, which we are working very hard to share, both in terms of the living music and in terms of teaching it, transmitting it to future generations. So I'm here at my home in Northbrook, Illinois, and with my Bansuri student, Dr. Sunny Patel, here, and with my Bansuri student, Dr. Samir Murli, joining us by link in Houston. When I was a student at Juilliard, learning to play orchestral and other flute repertory in Western classics, a Bengali friend, I was at a Bengali friend's place, and I heard a recording of Bismillah Khan's Shanai, and I was immediately taken by the sound and the sentiment of it. This was obviously music of deep feeling that produced an immediate effect. At the same time, I realized, at least intuitively, that as improvised music, it also was beautifully structured. And that was something that interested me very much. And I was also amazed at the fact that I could be learning music at a leading institution of musical training in the United States and have never heard a note of Indian music to that point in time, and heard it in my friend's basement apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan instead. So I started to collect LP records, and I was able that way to hear music of Ravi Shankar, Ali Akbar Khan, Vilayat, and Imrat Khan's, Jugalbandis, Balachander's Veena in Carnatic music, and a few other items on a compilation. I had about 10 LP records. One of those items on that compilation was a Bansuri piece of an unidentified Bansuri player. All I really knew was that the flute was an instrument in Hindustani music. But going on listening to those records and trying to learn something in Manhattan, I was unable to find anyone who could teach me anything. At a certain point in time, I felt that it would really be worth my while as a musician to try to go and learn to play the music. So I went out for a Fulbright grant, and I got that Fulbright. As Ranjit had said, I had gotten a position in St. Louis Symphony and played there for a season, which I enjoyed very much. It was great coming out of conservatory and getting to play in a very good professional orchestra. I learned a lot. I got to work with many wonderful musicians. But I resigned because I wanted to learn Indian music. So in those days, Fulbright scholars were sent to India by boat, on 2 ocean liners, in fact, and as a group. So we were 25 days on the water. And it was a very nice experience because the boats were, well, they were not your modern kind of cruise ship, but they stopped in various ports of call. So we spent a day in Casablanca, and we spent an afternoon in Gibraltar, and then the boat stopped in Naples and Genoa, and then we transferred on land to a boat that we took from Marseille, and the boat from Marseille went through the Suez Canal. So as we were going through the Suez Canal, that gave us a day, and some of us decided to go into Cairo and see what we could see. Ranjit, if you would share the screen, I've got some slides up, and you'll see a picture of me. Is that screen?
Line first, you have to share, please.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see.
Then I'll add it to the. It is now here.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's me. On a train. It was crowded, completely crowded, as any train you've ever seen in India, I'm sure. And I'm up in the luggage rack there because there were no available seats, and quite grimy from the day of seeing the Sphinx and the pyramids, and getting on that train to catch the boat and continue on. So we continued on, and then I arrived in what was then Bombay at the Sassoon docks, and then we transferred to Bombay Central and caught the Frontier Mail to Delhi and had some orientation. I was put up in a nice little temporary lodging, and that was near the Fulbright headquarters. And in order to get lessons for me, they knew someone was coming who wanted to learn flute. So they consulted with Dr. Narayana Menon, who was the Director General of All India Radio. And he recommended that I be sent for lessons to Devendra Murdeshwar, then a staff artist and music producer at the Delhi station. To get to the next slide. This is the Murdeshwar family. So, of course, it's Murdeshwarji in the upper right. And his wife was Sudha, my Mayaji, and she was the daughter of Panalal Ghosh. And their two children, Anand and Jayashri. He had recommended that I be sent for lessons to Devendra Murdeshwar. Dr. Menon was well reputed both as an effective administrator and as musically knowledgeable, so he had very good reasons to recommend Murdeshwarji. I was to learn that Guruji had come to Delhi when Ravi Shankar asked Panalal Ghosh to recommend a flutist for the orchestra Shankar had founded for the radio system. It was known as the Akashvani Vadya Vrind. And it was an experimental kind of an aggregation because orchestral music has not been common in India. Nowadays, of course, it's much more so with the Bollywood orchestras, and some symphonies even have come into existence. But the Akashvani Vadya Vrind was a new development that was really pioneered by Ravi Shankar, among the many other things that Ravi Shankarji was able to do in his great life, which we go on celebrating, of course. So Ravi Shankar had asked Panalal Ghosh to recommend a flutist for that orchestra. And since that time, along with duties at the station, Murdeshwarji had become a leading recitalist in his own right, performing all around India as well as on international tours, playing in numerous festivals along with his duties at the radio station had put him in regular touch with virtually all the leading figures of Hindustani music, a situation he seemed to truly relish. I set out to meet Murdeshwarji at his French Square government quarters. And there's a photo of that too. So that's Jaya, about the time that I met her when she was about 3. And of course, she's a very fully grown mom of a fully grown son. Here, Kankare. She's Jaya Kankare now. And those are the quarters where they lived. They were at number 22. I happened to catch the snap of her in front of number 23. Let's see what the next picture is. This is a picture of Anand on the right of the screen with some little boy he was hanging out with in a park that day. This is a picture from Independence Day of that year, which was 1965. It must have been August of 1965. It's a float. Some folk, looks to be some folk musicians, examples of handicraft, hand-weaved saris, I'm thinking. Just a picture I found around that I thought I'd share. So anyway, Murdeshwarji was cordial to me, asking about my background, but also rather immediately about the length of my scholarship. I told him it was for 9 months, and he said I wouldn't be able to learn in that amount of time. I said I was already aware of that and could make a commitment of several years. And on that basis, he agreed to teach me. So we set about the process where once Guru teaches the student the content, the history, the personalities, anecdotes, and sensibilities of the music. And over the course of years, I came to realize how seriously he took the task of passing on the heritage of the music. He made me a flute, the first of many I was to watch him make. We spent about 2 weeks on note patterns known as paltas, and then he began teaching me ragas. He said he'd make me play in public in 3 months' time, so as to create good grounds for getting a scholarship renewal. I learned to play with tabla accompaniment, and he taught me enough material to perform versions of rags Yemen, Desh, and Bihag. So what I want to do now is play you an excerpt of a recording that I have of him teaching me Rag Desh. And you'll see from this very much the traditional method of Guru to Shishya, dictation of phrases and then the student tries his best or her best to reproduce the phrase, and then the guru goes on with another phrase. And this is how he taught me. And he was so generous in teaching me day in and day out. He wanted me at his house. I'll tell you more about this in a minute. Let's listen to some of this. There we go. So you see, the guru has to play the phrase and the student has to try to play it back. It's a kind of oral dictation, you could call it. And I was just noticing the section we just listened to, how I was succeeding pretty well in picking up a pattern. And then what Guru did was he joined me in the same pattern he had previously shown me, you may have noticed, and extended it farther. So I think that's perhaps a good metaphor for what goes on in teaching and learning the music, is that you're always striving to get farther into the music, and you're striving to catch up to what your guru can do. It's an endless quest, is what I can tell you, especially when you're lucky enough to have a guru like Devendra Mudeshwar. So this was going on. I found a comfortable spot to live, renting a room in Karol Bagh on a Barsati from Mr. S.V. Rajan. Rajan was a congenial fellow, a businessman and music critic covering Carnatic music for the Times of India. On this Barsati that winter, I was able to grow roses. That happens to be a rose that I grew. I don't think I've been able to grow such a nice flower anywhere in the States. But anyway, there's me at my first Holi on that Barsati, and there's Rajan in second from the right, and just some fellows who were there in the neighborhood. It's quite obvious it was Holi that day. So in order to further advance my prospects of being able to stay longer, in other words, to help me get that scholarship extended, Guru arranged a concert. He said, I'll make you play in 3 months. I'll make you play these 3 ragas in public in 3 months' time. and he arranged a concert in an auditorium at the Delhi U campus, arranged for critics to come, and I played whatever it was I played. I can't imagine it was very good, but anyway, I found myself with positive reviews, and put in for renewal of the grant. I was able to get a renewal of the grant, and oh yes, there was another detail I want to tell you about, which is, it seems to me, you know, I was young, I was ambitious, I was mostly ambitious about playing music, and in a wonderful situation for a music student where all I had to do was practice, get my lessons and practice. So I wasn't thinking myself that much about how do I go on supporting myself, how do I get my scholarship renewed. So really it was Guruji who did all that thinking and planning for me, which was just another great thing he did. So in this same process, he had said, I'll send you to Calcutta to meet Ali Akbar Khan. Ask him to endorse your scholarship renewal. So I did. And this is a picture, I'm pretty sure I took it outside of Howrah Station when I took a train over there. And these are the train, if I recall correctly, had gotten hung up outside the station. Might have been about a half a mile. And these were people walking the rest of the way to the station. And I met Khan Sahib. I heard him perform. I played for him. He gave me a little bit of talim himself. And he gave me a letter of recommendation, which of course I still treasure it as a memento. So I think I have that here. Let's see, I have some number of photos. That's Calcutta in about 1965, I think. Some guys on the street. Looks to be some itinerant musicians. That's the letter that Khan Sahib wrote for me. Very kind. So, and Ali Akbar Khan Sahib was the first of many great personalities in Hindustani music that I've had the joy of interacting with as a further benefit of being Murdeshwarji's student. And the magic worked. It resulted in my grant being renewed, then extended, and subsequently getting additional grant support to enable continued study. So around this time, the Murdeshwars were taking their annual leave for a family reunion in his native place in Konkan, south of Goa. It was actually Anand's sacred ceremony, and his cousin Dilip that they were celebrating. And that's a picture I have from that place. I wish I had more pictures. It's a very beautiful part of the country. They invited me along, and I had a marvelous time in the isolated village where his parents lived. After taking various means of transport to reach Hubli, we had to take a small boat down a river to arrive at the village of Masur, powered by an outboard and driven by Guru's brother Ramakrishna. Among all the siblings, cousins, aunts, and uncles, we spent about 30 days in that beautiful, roadless at the time, watery zone of coconuts, jackfruit, cashew bushes, and wildlife, which was situated between a dusty hill in the back and a stretch of shallow river at the front. Another notable incident during my early days in Delhi took place at the US Embassy. Guruji had performed there earlier and become friends with Dorothy, who is known as Steb Bowles, the ambassador's wife. One very pleasant evening, we went to perform outdoors on the embassy grounds. The tabla player, Fayaz Khan, then a young man, was one of Guru's favorite accompanists for very good reason. He was a fantastic accompanist as well as a brilliant player. Guru had made me play a couple of items, and then he gave his own recital. So what I'm going to do now is play for you a recording I made that night of one of the items they played. It's Kafi Tumri, known as Jilla. I have to change the screen. This might take a moment. Fayaz was to become a dear friend of mine in later years, whom I met many times, both in Delhi and in Chicago. I was able to put him up at my place and also perform in local concert with him here. I saw him for the last time during a trip to Delhi in 2011 when I found his place in Paharganj. He made me come back for lunch another day, and I became friends with his grandson, Imran Khan, who's a fine young tabla player, and I hope we hear from much as the future rolls around. Fayaz died at the age of 79 in 2014. He was one of the most gracious and gentle persons I've had the pleasure to know, and to me, one of the most accomplished, exciting tabla players and greatest accompanists. And in this particular cut we just listened to, I really enjoy so much the way he works into the virtuosic material in such a delicate manner that's so fitting to the character of the flute playing that's going on, and that they weave together such interesting stuff with nice contrast and a beautiful overall texture. There's, even in the middle of all that virtuosity that Fayaz displays, I feel there's a lot of delicacy in his touch, and it's just a wonderful example of one kind of great tabla playing that you can hear. Yet another notable moment where you'll hear some a very different kind of tabla playing in just a moment. Yet another notable moment was meeting the great tabla ustad Amir Hussain Khan. You can see I'm into tabla playing as something that I just really enjoy an awful lot. I met him at a private concert that Guru had arranged. Amir Hussain Saab, Guru explained to me, was known not only as a great exponent of traditional material, much of which is improvisational, but also as a composer of fixed pieces for tabla. Distinguished in appearance and gracious in manner, he took pains via translation to explain that he made a point of vocally reciting the compositions by stroke names to demonstrate how every piece was done as precisely as he intended it, not faked, as he said some players do. I recorded that program too on what was a cumbersome but pretty decent Grundig home tape recorder that Mrs. Bowles had gotten for Gurji. So we're going to listen to some of that. I think it's cued right. The recording isn't too clear where he explains the whole structure of the composition, but unfortunately, I don't think it would transmit very well on this audio. So I'm just going to play you the composition itself. It should come about right here. Let's see. So what he had explained that what he was doing, he has a certain piece of that's pre-composed that he plays, and then he fits in tabla strokes at a different rate of speed. So and they amount to 27 altogether. He's in a cycle of 10 beats, and he, after each fixed piece, he then adds one stroke, and then he plays the fixed piece and adds 2 strokes. Then he plays the fixed piece and adds 3 strokes, all the way up to 9 strokes, ending with, which is a total of 27 interpolated strokes that all comes in some number of cycles. We'd have to listen carefully and figure that out. Comes to exactly the first beat of the of a new cycle at the end of the composition in a cycle of 10 beats. So it's just a good example of the kind of mind-boggling things that tabla players are able to do with rhythm and with this remarkable pair of drums that they play. So travel in India, I want to get back to some of my slides. Thank you. This is something on the way to Darjeeling. One of the joys of getting to India has always been to travel and see the myriad sites of historical, geographical, and artistic interest. By the time I'd been there for 2 years, I'd been to Calcutta, seen Kanchenjunga from the plane at Siliguri, been to Darjeeling. This is on the way to Darjeeling. And another shot. I'm not even sure where that is. I liked the picture when I found it, so I threw it in here. I'd been to Chennai and to Madurai. This is the great temple, Meenakshi temple at Madurai. Got a couple of shots of that. And I'd had a lovely stay with a family in Cuttack. I was invited by a friend of mine who lived in Delhi to come and meet his family in Cuttack in Orissa. And from Cuttack, we got to Konark, we got to Puri, and I saw the temple of Jagannath Puri, and we got to a wonderful wildlife park. Along with that great trip west to Konkan. So in subsequent years, I've been able to get to more places still, and I'll show you some pictures later from Himachal Pradesh. I've gotten to Rajasthan also, of course, Delhi, of course, Agra and the Taj. I have a picture with my family at the Taj that I'll show you in a bit. After I'd been in Delhi for 2 years, Gurji decided to relocate to Bombay. Of course, I moved as well in order to continue studying. Bombay, now Mumbai, of course, was a great place for music life, and I was fortunate in finding accommodations in the Daler Mahim neighborhood on what was then called Lady Harding Road, within walking distance of a little beach on the Arabian Sea. I could catch a swim. I had a simple apartment in a neighborhood of mostly Western Railway workers. I was actually living in the only solid building, you could say, the only building that really had a couple of stories and fully built structure. That a friend of mine was very nice and renting to me for really a very small amount of money. So there was an open field across the way from where I was living, and a lot of the guys working over there, working type guys, were playing kabaddi in that open space, and they taught me how to play sort of one day. But they decided I was too rough. I'm not quite sure why, but I think it might have been due to some whatever habits of playing some little bit of touch football here in the States when I was a lot younger. Anyway, I was too rough for that sport, apparently. But I became friends with the guys around there. So a lot of times late at night, I would be coming home from my bansuri lessons. I'd be taking the train from Dadar Mahim to Goregaon on the Western Railway. And I'd let myself in and I'd turn on the lights, and there'd be a knock on the door. And it was one of my young friends, a guy named Kumar. And what he was doing and knocking on my door that time of night was bringing me a tiffin full of home-cooked food. He would say, Ma sent this. So these are the kind of things that I found very touching in my stay. People of really so many walks of life in India have been kind to me, hospitable to me, friendly to me, and that's just great. Riding trains to Goregaon and back was an experience as well, particularly outbound trips during the homebound commute. Since the first class compartments were often as crowded as third, I'd end up in the third class often enough. And there was usually one car that had bhajan singing going on, with people using those swinging metal grab bars that you have up high to hang on to. They were using them like percussion instruments, clanging along. And there would often be somebody playing a dholak also in that car, and people who wanted to be singing bhajans would be in that car. So I have to say, I think in a way that was part of my music education too, because the folk music is so vital, and it all seems to meld together in the classical music. Folk rhythms get into the classical music, and the spirit of the people also, I think, really got conveyed in yet another way to me from those experiences. I was also treated very kindly by others in Dadar Mahim, made friends, some of whom I've been lucky to keep to this day. So I think I have another picture from Konark. It's a picture from somewhere along the way. This is from riding the train, Nagda Junction, someplace in Madhya Pradesh, from the train window. Village family. This is Bombay. I like to think of this picture. It was a typical old style Bombay building, but I also think of it as hurry, worry, curry, an expression I learned over there. I don't know the guy, I just snapped the shot. This is a family I was friendly with. Their name is Chandavarkar. They were very nice to me. They gave me lunch a lot of the time. I spent a lot of nice afternoons over there. Next. I'm not even sure. That's me in front of a temple. I think it's in Bombay. I'm just not sure where it is.
Linda, is that Mahalakshmi temple maybe?
I just don't remember. This is from the steps looking down. See, I know it's in a big city because I can see that it's overlooking a lot of development. But I like this picture also. You might notice there's a statue of a female figure nestled in there in between the ladies who are standing by it. And I just think that there's something I like an awful lot about those ladies among that statue. So as I say, basically, I've been overwhelmed by hospitality and kindness offered by people in so many walks of life in India. Another great experience taking part in the scene in the 60s was visiting Taranat Rao, the esteemed tabla player and teacher, before he came to teach at Cal Arts. When I knew him, he was maintaining his studio at home in a neighborhood called Tardale. I'd drop in, and usually find some 10 or more young students ranging in age from probably 10 to 20, sitting in a circle and taking instruction from Taranat. Similarly to the way I was learning flute, Taranat would play some pattern and the boys would repeat it around the circle. Quite impressively, I found. Every one of them, it seemed to me, could play from the youngest on up. And probably some of those boys of the time included current luminaries in the tabla world, such as Onkar Gulwari and Sadan and Naimpuli, both of whom I've been fortunate to play concerts with in later years. When we arrived at Bombay, Guru had told me to engage Ustad Amir Hussein's son, Fakir Hussain, known as Papa Khan, for weekly practice in Tal with tabla at my place. What one does when is learning, and whenever when is possible, we like to practice with tabla players so we get practice in the cycle. And so you hire someone when you're a student, if you're in a position to, or at any time, you can get somebody to come by your place regularly and give you what's called teka, the framework of the cycles. So I was very happy to do what Guru told me to and engage Fakir Hussain to come and give me teka. He was kind enough to also show me some rudiments of tabla playing and give materials to practice. I was enjoying that quite a bit, but I felt I'd better not get lost in tabla playing if I wanted to be good enough at Bansuri. So I learned a few things, but I can't keep it up. I haven't got my hands aren't in shape to keep playing tabla, that's for sure. But in the meanwhile, I maybe because I was throwing some minor work Papa Khan's way, I also got a chance. He let me know I'd be welcome at their place, so I would drop in and visit with Ustad Amir Hussain. He was continued to always be very gracious and welcoming to me, and I often found myself there, again, dropping in to watch him teach. And by this time, I could speak enough Hindi to converse fairly well, and I found his experience both interesting and moving, along with hearing all that great playing and teaching. And one time, Papa Khan invited me to a program of tabla solos. It was a tabla solo concert, Mayfield, as probably small concerts are known, of his dad's accomplished students. So to me, it seemed like what we call a cutting contest here, contest among jazz players, where you've got a bunch of good players up on a stand and they're taking turns, taking solos, and one after another, you try to outdo the previous guy. So this struck me as being pretty similar in character to that. Each one of them could play, and they would just play one after another, and again, show an awful lot of impressive tabla playing. So one time, Amir Hussain Saab called Guru's place to say that I should come on a certain day because the greatest soloist of the day, Ustad Ahmed Jan Tiraqua, would be there, and I could meet him if I turned up. So of course I went. And Amir Hussain Saab generously introduced me as an American who plays Bansuri very well. And I do feel that Tiraqua Saab looked very doubtful about that characterization. He was sort of looking, tilting his head back and looking down at me. He was a very tall guy, and he was very nicely dressed in a black sherwani and a round cap. But he did play for me, and I have to say that experience was also very special because the sound he could produce was really remarkable. I don't think anyone else could play with that combination of power and clarity. So there was, hearing it from sitting right next to the guy was really one of those special experiences.
Lyon, we are running short of time. We can have your students also.
Yeah, we could do that. We could. Why don't we skip to what we were talking about? You could turn off the sharing of the screen, and we'll ask Sunny and Samir to.
You can conclude in a minute or two, and then we can have your students as well.
No, don't do that. We'd like me to just wrap up what I'm talking about.
Right,
Yeah.
right, correct.
Okay. So, well, life went on in Bombay enjoyably for the balance of 5 years. I had some chance to work in the Bollywood studios also and met some prominent people there. I was Lata Mangeshkar graciously invited me to her home after we had played a session together, so I got to know her very slightly, and that was fun. And then I've been able to come back on a number of occasions. In 1988, I had a nice grant and brought Paula and Jenny, my wife and daughter, and I think I can quickly get this. This is a village wedding I went to in the early days. Boys, this is later. This is 1988, where you see from the left after me, we have Nityanand Haldipur, my Guru Bhai. We have Pandit Nayan Ghosh, and Ustad Shamim Ahmed, who sadly has passed away now, but was a very good friend of mine. I knew him from the 60s in the studios and met him again later. So this is a restaurant in Andheri where we'd gone after a concert that I had played at Nayan School, Sangeet Mahabharati. This is when Guruji was in the United States for a tour I had organized of his concert tour of North America, where he played 20 concerts very successfully. I was able to back him up on some of them. He taught me more. 1988, I was able to come back. This is in their place in Goregaon. That's Anand Murdeshwar, and that's Anand's daughter, Shruti, with a little costume on, and Guruji playing with her. This is my daughter, Jenny, with Shruti. Jenny was 7 at the time. She's a grown-up mom at this point in time also. That picture came out small, but that's Paula, my wife, and Jenny in front of the Taj Mahal. This is near where we were staying in Borivali that year. This is some young people that were living in Tardale at one time. Some shots I've taken here and there, Guru and me in Goregaon. These are in the Himalayas. Some of these are too small. I have to fix them. This is at the Kunzum Pass above Manali. I had been able to take a trip one year. I think we'll end the slideshow there. Why don't you put us back on the other screen, Ranjit?
Pardon?
Can you put it back on the main screen?
Okay. All right.
You can see me.
Just a minute. You need to stop this sharing.
Stop sharing.
Huh. All right. Okay. Now you like to play and then interaction with the students.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna do is.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Well, first of all, Samir, Sunny, you have anything to say? Any questions you want to ask in particular? Otherwise, I think, how much time have we got left, Ranjit?
I think 4 minutes.
4 minutes. That's
we
not
have
a lot.
about 10 more. 10
10 more.
Okay.
Though we have exceeded, but we can take 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. So what I wanted to do here was give my students a chance to be heard, maybe better than speaking on their bansaris, because they're both doing very nicely. And I thought at the same time, we could demonstrate this teaching method that I learned from, and I think it's very traditional, this idea of the guru plays, the student plays back. There could be some correction or not. We love it when the student gets things pretty close to what we play the first time, but it's not a big deal if one doesn't. And so I think we'll just take turns. I'll play a phrase. I think I'll ask Samir to play the next one, and then Sunny to play it a third time, and then I'll play another phrase, and we'll see how that goes. And we're playing a rag called Marwa, which is appropriate for basically the twilight hour, sunset hour. Nice. Right. So from here we can go on, of course, getting into all kinds of rhythm. It could an hour could take a lesson easily enough. But I think probably we should call it quits right here. But I think both of you guys are doing very nicely. I'm really happy to hear you, and that you could get involved in this. Let's see, Consul General has joined us. Hello, sir. I hope you're well. I'll just play one more phrase. So, shall we wrap it up?
Thank you. Yes, we have exceeded our time, so very amazing and refreshing. You as well as your students. Thank you for sharing your experiences of learning Hindustani classical music since 1965 with gurus like Rudeshwar and Pannanal Ghosh, and your travels to various parts of India. You have shared wonderful experiences and wonderful history. Uh, Consul General Amit Kumarji, uh, who joined shortly after the lecture, is now with us. Sir, I would request you to for your remarks.
Thank you, Ranjit ji. At the outset, I apologize for getting delayed. I had gone to an engagement in a Chicago suburbs and did not really anticipate that the time to return to Chicago would be far more than what it took me to reach there. And I suppose it attests to the appeal of Chicago as a wonderful city with so many people, I think, vying to reach Chicago. We have some unusually warm and wonderful weather nowadays. But coming to the event, I'm really delighted that Leon Liefer joined us today as part of the India lecture series that we have conceived of as part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. I had met Lyon, not surprisingly, through Facebook, and have since met him a number of times. I have been struck by his passion and commitment for Indian classical music that he studied in India in the 60s for several years. And he has been working on promoting Indian classical music in the United States for close to 5 decades. He has also founded the South Asian Classical Music Society of Chicago. So, in that sense, Leon, thank you. You have been a wonderful cultural ambassador for India. And as someone who has been trained in both the Western and Indian classical music traditions, you have worked on compositions which blends both these genres, and for your efforts in connecting people and communities. Um, I really enjoyed your presentation, and I thank you for sharing your insights, particularly also living in India and sharing some priceless photographs. I really enjoyed those. I myself am a very keen photographer,
Mhm.
and so for me that was an added bonus from this program. So thank you once again for your lecture and sharing your insights.
It's been my pleasure and my joy to take part in this. Really
Thank
have.
you. I do look forward to some future joint activities with you and your students and the consulate. Yeah.
It sounds great.
Thank you. So,
Thank you very much, sir. I would like to add that on Facebook, we have been joined by various audiences who have appreciated. Those include Saraswati Ranganathan, M.A.D. White, Anupama Jain, Anurag Mishra Rajji, Shubhra Oja, and Anupama Jain. Really, thank you for joining us. And I would like to say that it will be a very useful lecture in our archives. Uh, we take leave of our audiences with thanks to Lion Liefer and his students Samir and Murali as Patel. Thank you.
All right. What turns this on? This one?